Sunday Surefire Podcast. It's your host this week, Aaron Downtown Brown. I have the co-host, Ethan Weaver, with me.
The playoffs are here, Aaron. How we doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, I think we warned everyone that the season was approaching to an end, and week 18 is officially in the books. I think we were saying a little bit before the show. We just passed Black Monday as well. We heard of a couple coach firings around the league, and then here we are to super wild card weekend now with only having one team on a bye in each division. So I think we have a pretty exciting weekend ahead of us. But Ethan, just what are your overall thoughts? Just over, I guess, just news around the league and any. I think if we were to kind of forecast or look ahead of this week at the beginning of the season, what type of surprises or storylines do you find interesting this year?
Yeah, no, looking at the the playoff slate, there's definitely some surprises. Like as we talked before we came on tonight, just obviously the Joe Flacco led Browns. I mean, everybody kind of left the Browns for dead once Deshaun Watson was out for the season, and it's kind of amazing what Joe Flacco's been able to do. I'm definitely rooting for him against Houston this weekend, and then obviously you have the Steelers who just limped their way into the playoffs with Mason Rudolph. They're on their third quarterback. It's just kind of crazy that they ended up making it. I think the LA Rams, it's another good story. Obviously, Stafford was hurt last year. They had a 5-12 record, and now look at they're right back in the mix. And honestly, a lot of people are picking the Rams to beat Detroit this weekend, so that should be a really good game. But obviously, the storyline there with Matt Stafford going back to Detroit. Obviously, like I mentioned, the Browns Texans game. You have the Browns and Texans. They obviously made that massive trade with Deshaun Watson, so it's kind of cool to see those two teams playing against each other. Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City. I know you must, you probably can't wait for that one, but that's another juicy storyline there. So definitely wild card weekend is it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to it. And then just to touch on the coaches, I guess the biggest surprise was Mike Vrabel actually getting let go today. And then on Black Monday with Arthur Smith and Ron Rivera, those were two coaching firings that you probably saw the writing on the wall. But yeah, Mike Vrabel, I just thought I was a little surprised just because being in New England and listening to obviously sports talk radio, they were talking about potentially trading for Mike Vrabel if Belichick leaves, and now the Tennessee Titans just let him go. So that was very surprising to me. So those are my quick thoughts. What do you have, Aaron?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty good. Good overview there, and I think just talking on the Vrabel point, that was surprising to me too. I think he was kind of looked at as a pretty up and coming coach, and it wasn't too long ago they were the number one seed in the AFC, right? So it just shows you how how tough it is to be an NFL coach in today's world, right? I mean, I still remember. I mean, it wasn't his decision to trade AJ Brown a few years back, and I still remember his death stare he gave at the GM that the night of that draft. So, yeah, no, tough going there with the Vrabel firing, but I am excited to see where he goes next because I don't think his story's over as far as the coaching landscape goes. So, yeah, and then I guess I guess we're doing a lot of Titans talk today, but you also have Derrick Henry. He was kind of saying his goodbyes this weekend too. I think he just knows the writings on the wall where they're not going to come in any type of agreement there. I know upcoming shows we're going to be talking about like certain free agents to target or maybe trade away on your team. Kamish is not here with us tonight, but he just wrote up a really nice blog on the Sunday Surefire website over Josh Jacobs. He's another notable running back to kind of keep an eye on this offseason as well. So if you haven't already, check that out. That's on our Sunday Surefire /blog page. It's kind of all over our socials as well. But yeah, I think, a lot of things to look forward to in the offseason. But yeah, as you mentioned, I don't think the NFL script writers could do much better than this. So as you said, a lot of good storylines. A few to mention here too. Left out was just kind of Houston's turnaround too, right? I mean, look what CJ Stroud did in Houston. That's just really cool to see them making the playoffs and how great of a future is ahead of him. I mean, it's not like Sunday Surefire didn't see that one coming, right, Ethan?
Oh, we definitely saw that. We definitely saw CJ Stroud being better than Bryce Young. Did we expect CJ Stroud to take the NFL by storm? Yes, we did. No, no, I'm just kidding. No, I mean what CJ Stroud was able to do this year was great. I don't think anybody expected him to be this good, or he would have definitely went 1-on-1. But yeah, I mean another story that I failed to mention earlier too with the Packers and Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, so ex Packers coach there. So that's another storyline with that game. So that'll be fun as well. The script writers drew up a doozy, so hey, it's gonna be good. But hey, also with the coaches, one last comment on that. Like, what's the common theme for Arthur Smith, Mike Vrabel, and Ron Rivera?
I don't know. I guess fantasy running backs that were let down, I guess, on this year, that were a lot of fantasy managers kind of wanted to throw their teams away from.
I should have gave you a little hint. It had like what I was getting at is like what was pretty much led to their firings. And I think the biggest thing is just no quarterback, right? All three of those teams had no quarterback, and all three of those coaches are looking for jobs. And I think it just goes to tell you, I mean, it's like a coach is only as good as the quarterback takes the team. I mean, just ask how Bill Belichick's doing after Tom Brady. Not so good. So I think if Mike Vrabel would have had a more competent quarterback in Tennessee, and I think he's still there. But so just something that obviously teams struggle every single year with trying to find their quarterback. Being a Patriot fan, we're in that same boat. So hopefully there are brighter days to come.
No, that's a very good point. I think just to kind of reel that a little bit into fantasy too. I know, like, kind of my long strategy I had since getting into fantasy, as far as picking running backs, is you usually want running backs on winning teams, right? So that's another thing is, if you I know there's so much young talent out there, but you do look at kind of Henry's demise, and they're scoring less, and obviously scoring translates into fantasy points too. So we definitely want to see teams turn around, especially not wasting that young talent of like Bijan. Saw another funny stat that Tyler Algier actually had more rushing yards in his rookie year than Bijan did this year. So that's kind of upsetting to
Yeah,
most fantasy managers out there.
yeah, that's why Arthur Smith had to go.
Yeah.
He's
So
killing
yeah,
our
I'm sure
fantasy teams.
that's right. Yeah. Maybe probably the GM had a couple shares of Bijan that he wasn't too happy with as
Yeah.
well. So
Hey, speaking of that game, did you see how that game ended?
I did not.
So, I don't know if you heard like that the Dennis Allen apology, and then Arthur Smith kind of freaking out at the end of the game. So essentially, at
Oh,
the
I
end of the
did see that actually.
yeah, so they
Hey,
were in a formation to kneel the ball down, and I think Jamal Williams hasn't had a touchdown all year, so they did like a fake kneel. They were in the kneeling formation, and Jameis just turned around and gave the ball to Jamal Williams, and he went in the end zone. And then at the end of the game, Arthur Smith's like running across the field, like freaking out at Dennis Allen. Then Dennis Allen comes out saying that wasn't the play call, and that's not what we're about. AKA telling everybody that the team doesn't respect him because it's like they changed the play call on him, and then he admits that the team essentially changed the play call on him. So it just seemed like a complete mess. But yeah, so that was a tough way to go out for Arthur Smith with him yeah, yelling at Dennis Allen. But I just thought that was kind of a crazy way to end two teams that are going home, because obviously the Saints were eliminated because the surprise Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the NFC South.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, especially with the Saints favored preseason to win that. Sounds like a big Jameis Winston moment right there, just knowing
Hey, he's eating
his
W's,
character.
baby, eating
That's
W's.
right. Looking out for his fellow teammate from leading the league and rushing touchdowns to getting his first one the last game of the year. So
Gotta
definitely
love it.
definitely interesting way to finish there, but I'm sure we'll definitely cover a lot of that. And there's just tons of info to talk about here in the off season. But before we do that, as we know, we still have a lot of DFS play to go with this super wild card weekend. So as we do on the show, we'll continue that format because I know there's some exciting matches you can do in that classic DFS play. I know the one we're gonna pick tonight. It starts from the Saturday games and ends on Monday. So I know the $15 buy-in can win you 100,000 in cold cash. So that's kind of our theme for tonight. So we're gonna choose that layout. But before we dive right into it, I think it will be kind of fun to talk about our season stats. So Ethan, yeah, you're the newcomer to season 3 this year, and hey, I guess I'm just gonna have to attribute it to beginner's luck here that you actually ended up beating us. Took away the most wins in our classic lineup. That to me, kind of our most competitive back and forth. We do keep track of the captains, but you actually took the captain and the classic this year. It was a pretty tight race. Took away with 7 wins. Commish and I both had 5. But here's a key stat that I thought was pretty interesting. So whenever we talk DFS, we usually kind of equate us to the $20 buy-in, which is the $1 million, first place payout that we kind of keep track of. So historically, anytime you score more than 130 points in your fantasy lineup each week, in that you'll get some money back, right? Whether it's 30 or $40 back on a $20 buy-in. That's usually the case. And it was fun to see that we all finished above 130 points for our average weekly lineup. So I did, even though you got the wins this year, Ethan. I had the highest average, the 139. You came in at 135 and commission at 134. So
I
all
had to let you in
pretty.
something.
There you go. There you go. um, yeah, so definitely, I know as we were talking about my 218 point week, definitely
That
didn't
helps.
hurt there to bump that average up. But yeah, definitely, pretty exciting. I know last year we finished like dead on 130 points, cumulative average. This year we're at 136 as a team, so moving on up, better than last year, and that's all you can hope for.
Oh, definitely. I like to think I'm helping the Sunday Surefire team here. So it was definitely a great first year for me in DFS, just in terms of just learning the DFS platform. I was relatively new to DFS, and obviously with my fantasy background, it was pretty easy to kind of roll into it and um do well in the format that we have week to week. But I was happy to compete with the likes of the commission, yourself, Aaron Downtown Brown. So definitely a fun season. I learned a lot in the DFS space, and I'm looking forward to running it back next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it also just goes to show. I mean, we have this formula, this kind of rundown we give with the bullish buys, defensive strategies, pick sixes. So it really goes to show. I mean, as Ethan, as a new, not new to fantasy, but new to DFS, you can kind of hop on, in year one, kind of go with our general week to week strategy, general how we set up our teams for the most part and jump right in and beat us right in year one. So pretty neat story there. But I guess enough with the small talk. We'll jump right into the show, but we'll kick it off first from with some told you so's from last week.
You like that? You like that?
So Ethan, why don't you take it away with told you so's from week 18?
Yeah, I wish I had more to talk about. It wasn't the greatest week for the players we discussed on the podcast. I ended up having a pretty decent week because of Justin Jefferson, which is a guy I didn't talk about as my bullish buy. I talked about Rashad White, who kind of let me down, but I did sneak Justin Jefferson into my lineup, which I believe he had 39 points, but unfortunately can't talk about him because I didn't talk about him last week. But the only I told you so I had was Brandon Cooks. He had a little over 3 times his value. He was $5,200 bucks last week, and he scored 16.2 points. So Brandon Cooks was the only player that was mentioned by myself in the pod last week that came to fruition. So my apologies.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat with you too. I mean, Rashad White. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, playing against one of the worst defenses in the league would have let us down. In a must-win game. Who would have thought that would have happened? I mean, he had an easy way to 13 points, but he just couldn't really get it going on the ground. Had the volume, but what did work out for me. I did talk about doing a stack last week with Rashad White and Tampa Bay's defense. So one leg of that worked out. I mean, Tampa Bay 7 points on defense did shut Carolina out, holding them to 0 points. 3 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries. So gave you 17. So really needed White to come through, and he just happened to not last week. So a little unfortunate there. Else my strategy would have panned out for me. D Hop made his reception incentive. Didn't go all out. I mean, it was known they were kind of focusing in on him in the first half. I mean, I think he had 4 receptions in the first half, well on his way to his 6 to hit that cash, but did come down with a touchdown, but only scored you 17 points. So kind of just almost 3 times your play. He was a $6,000 player, but kind of let me down a little bit. Thought he'd have a little bit better game, but still not too shabby. And then I'll make a public announcement. Apologize for the Noah Gray take there. Travis Kelce, it's funny, he didn't start. So I was on the right track with starting Gray. I know he had some looks in the first quarter, just didn't come down with any. But Gray did not pan out for me at all. But it was one of those where in week 18, if he did come down with a touchdown, that's the difference of a decent amount of winning dollars in DFS. But that's my told you so for this week.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you did bring up Noah Gray, but there was a reason why he was, I believe, as you put, priced the lowest that he could possibly be priced in the DraftKings format. Correct?
Correct.
Well,
there's a reason for that.
Luckily, that goose egg didn't cost you too much.
Yeah. No, that's funny thing is he actually scored less than his normal average. I mean, he was at least getting like 5 points, 5 points a week as the number 2 tight end. But who would have thought they would have started Blake Bell, their 3rd string tight end, and get more snaps last week? But
the belldozer.
That's right. Yeah. But all right, so we'll move on from Told You So's. We'll jump into our bullish buy section, and this is where players this week. We do have a lot higher caliber players to pick from in this slate. Being all playoff teams, so this should get interesting. I know you can come up with a lot of pretty solid lineups. So this should be pretty valuable for you listeners out there, just guys that we're bullish in this week and this weekend. So, Ethan, I'll let you kick it off here with your first bullet or with your bullish buy.
I'm going to play it safe with my bullish buy. I'm going to pay up for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been one of the safest receivers in the NFL fantasy wise over the past few weeks. In his last 4 games, he's averaged 20, or he's scored at least 20 more points. 30.4, 31.6, 27.2 in 3 of those 4 games. And Laporta is banged up, and there's an outside shot he does play, but if he doesn't play, I think it's going to be an even heavier dose of Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Rams aren't great against the wide receiver position. They're ranked 25th. So I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a big day. And I think the Detroit Lions are going to need a big day from Amon-Ra. And I think Jared Goff's going to be leaning on him and hoping Amon-Ra can have a big day and push the Lions into the second round there. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I feel like for your money, there's not a safer pick on the slate. He's just been a target machine, and he's been just a heavy producer.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Funny you pick St. Brown because I actually went St. Brown as well, too. So I was planning on bringing Amon Ra up as well, and I think you mentioned it. I mean, it's just the highest. It's the highest point spread of the weekend too. I do think there'll be a decent amount of scoring with the Rams Lions this week. Um, but yeah, as you said, just well put. I mean, he had a great season, 119 catches, over 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, and did not make the Pro Bowl. So I know he's got a, I know he's got a chip on his shoulder over that, and he is the type of player. I mean, he keeps notebooks of of wide receivers who's drafted before him. So he is the type to not take things like that lightly. So I think he does have a lot to prove. I mean, even though he doesn't have a whole lot to prove in general, because his play does speak for itself. So I also went Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. But since it's just us two on the pod tonight, I know Kamish is going to throw his picks in the Discord this week. I will give a second player just in the spirit of safety. Um, I'm going to call out AJ Brown. I want AJ Brown in my lineup as well. I think I just went pretty heavy on my wide receivers in my lineup this week. As my I guess I was prepared to talk about St. Brown, but just as I guess an extra filler guy, he's also 8,100, so he's definitely not cheap. But AJ Brown, kind of a big time play guy. I do think that Tampa Bay can keep Philly on their heels, with how poor their secondary is playing this year too. So I think Philly's gonna have to, I'm kind of hoping for a back and forth game, getting AJ Brown in my lineup. I know he kind of banged up his knee a little bit, but not really looking too serious. So my bullish buy outside of St. Brown is AJ Brown. I guess we're going with the dual Brown threat this week, Ethan.
Yeah, no, AJ Brown, he needs to have a big day against the Buccaneers to get the Eagles back on track. It's funny you mentioned AJ Brown. AJ Brown was one of the receivers that was selected over Amon-Ra St. Brown for the All Pro team, along with CeeDee Lamb and Puka Nacua. So all three of those receivers, obviously, well, all four, including Amon-Ra, are in the playoffs. So I know Amon-Ra was pretty upset about that. I do think Amon-Ra was slighted in the All Pro selection. I know Puka had a good year, but Puka had slightly more yards. But I believe Amon-Ra had more receptions and yards. I mean, sorry, more receptions and touchdowns. And he was the legitimate number one on his team as Puka and Kupp kind of flip flop. But I would say Kupp is still the number one on the Rams. So I think Amon-Ra definitely has that on the back of his head, and I think he does ball out throughout these playoffs. But AJ Brown, I mean, he's always a threat to go nuclear. But the Philadelphia Eagles passing attack and the Eagles in general are struggling mightily. I mean, I believe they lost 5 of their last 6 games. So the Eagles better hope AJ Brown goes off, because it may be tough sledding against the Buccaneers.
Agree. I definitely agree. I think I think they do need to be pretty aggressive this week to kind of think they have a lot to prove. Definitely not the way they wanted the season to end. So kind of what I'm thinking as well with AJ Brown, just they need some big plays, and at least they will be going up against the 32nd ranks or I'm sorry, 31st ranked secondary in the league with Tampa Bay. So he's got a decent shot of going nuclear, as you said. So looking forward to that. But I guess we'll move on to defenses here, and I guess I'll kick it off here. I'll go with the homer play. I'm trying to go a little bit cheaper. I needed to fit some of those big wigs in my lineup, so I went 2,900. I went the Kansas City Chiefs, playing the Dolphins here. I mean, I know it's kind of scary anytime you got your defense going against the Dolphins because they can pop off. Um, but oddly enough, this is the second lowest over under of the weekend. I mean, last time these two teams played, it was a relatively low scoring game in Germany, holding Miami under 20 points as well. But I mean, just overall in the season, Kansas City Chiefs defense has put up an average of 8 fantasy points per game, kind of led by their sacks. They definitely get to the quarterback and in creative ways, with corners blitzing and safeties, and you got Chris Jones in there too. So definitely can be safe in the respect of getting some sack points, and then obviously if they get turnovers, kind of icing on the cake. Snead is yet to give up a touchdown this year, and he has lined up against some pretty studly wide receivers this year. I really don't want to. I'm going to knock on wood as I say this. With them being my team, I really hope this isn't the game that Tyreek goes off and has 300 yards receiving or anything like that. But but yeah, I mean, other than that, Waddle's out. I know the Miami's defense is out, so I think just getting a defense under 3,000 was kind of my strategy this year, and I mean KC playing at home. Yeah, I think those are just kind of just the things I was looking at for this week. So I went KC for 2,900.
Yeah, definitely, definitely a little homer pick there, but it's the I do agree with you. I didn't want to pay up either for a defense this week. I would have rather spent the money on the other positional players. So I definitely don't hate the Kansas City Chiefs pick. I mean, Tua, he's thrown 14 interceptions this year. So and they scored 14 points in Miami against Buffalo last week. So the Dolphins will need Tyreek Hill to have a massive day if they're going to go into Kansas City and beat them. It's kind of crazy. You think of Kansas City and Miami in the beginning of the season. You thought that over under would be like 55,
Right.
but obviously, the Chiefs season obviously didn't go as planned offensively, and Miami, they've been a little up and down, but obviously with Miami they can pop off any given week. So obviously, you being a Chiefs fan, you're hoping Tyreek Hill doesn't go nuclear, but I feel like Tyreek Hill this game. I feel like of any other this year, he's going to want to show Kansas City what he's worth and what he can do. And I think there'd be no sweeter thing for Tyreek Hill than knock Kansas City out of the playoffs in Kansas City, which obviously would pain you very much. But I do think Tyreek Hill is going to be very, very motivated for this game. But I mean, the Dolphins also they've beaten one team. I believe they've only beaten one team this year with a winning record. I think what I heard was that the Patriots have more wins against teams over 500 than the Miami Dolphins. I think the Miami Dolphins, the only I guess win they have of teams over 500 is the Dallas Cowboys. So the Dolphins have been kind of beating the teams that they should be and losing to the teams that are actually legitimate. So we'll see what kind of Miami Dolphins team shows up. We'll see if the Chiefs can even flip the switch offensively. But I definitely don't mind the call considering the price point at 2,900, and the Chiefs have been a pretty good defense all year. So I like that call. So with that, I'll go into my defensive pick, and I used a similar strategy. I essentially just wanted to go cheap, and I went to Pittsburgh Steelers. I know TJ Watt may not play in this game, but I'm banking on the turnover prone Josh Allen to throw a pick or two. The Steelers do have a pretty scrappy defense, and I think they can wreak some havoc. Josh Allen has thrown 18 interceptions this year, and he has been a little up and down here and there. I'm hoping at the price point of 2,600 that the Steelers can get some sacks and they can get a few picks from Josh Allen. But I went very cheap, and I think if I'm going to roll the dice on any defense and against any quarterback, even though Josh Allen can put up points, he is prone to turnovers. So I'm hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers force a couple of those this weekend.
How much is Pittsburgh's defense?
2,600.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, definitely another cheap defense there, and it's before I bash it because I kind of do. I am a little scared of that pick. I will say I don't know how many times this year, like one of the lowest price defenses ended up with like 15 plus points this year. So
No,
it's kind of
exactly.
weird how that happens.
And just to add to it, like this this game does have one of the lower over unders of the week. I think it's only 36 or 36 and a half. So I don't think there's going to be an explosion of points in this one. They're probably factoring the fact that Pittsburgh probably isn't going to score a ton, but I mean Pittsburgh's defense. I mean, I would like them a little more if TJ Watt was playing, but I wanted to save some money, and I'm hoping they can make some plays for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Watt plays, I think there's a chance some of that could happen. I mean, I think it's as you said, I mean, yeah, Allen puts up points, but he also puts up turnovers this year, right? So um I think it's heavily involves how healthy Watt is. I think if Watt does not play, I think that team just I think they lose so many points in the spread. I mean, I think Buffalo's already favored 10 points. I think if Watt does not play, I'd probably hammer like minus 14 Buffalo at that point. But so I would just suggest like monitor his health there. I mean, it's a playoff game, so they're probably gonna try to look to getting them to play. But I would say, I mean, the Buffalo has, they turned their team around pretty well this year to kind of knock Miami off in the division too. So um I like where your head's at because I mean I'm doing the exact same strategy and I'm going against a pretty prolific offense as well. I don't have that much room to talk too, but I think both of us are kind of going with the same strategy, trying to save some money on defense, but kind of look and pray for some of those highlights to happen.
No, no, exactly. I mean, it's like I get it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are only against Buffalo, but I'm like I said, I'm banking on some turnovers. You're obviously starting the Kansas City Chiefs against a prolific offense, so it's the defensive choices weren't great unless you wanted to pay up, and even if you're paying up, I mean, Dallas Cowboys are the most expensive one on the slate, but Jordan Love's been balling out this year. I mean, I feel like every time he goes out there, like fantasy wise, anyways, he gets like 25 plus points. So, I mean, Jordan Love and the Packers have been playing pretty good. Uh, Pittsburgh and I think my probably favorite defense on the slate is the Buffalo Bills, but I didn't want to pay $3,500 for him. So we'll see if that costs me. And we'll go from there.
I agree. I agree. Well, yeah, we'll move on here to I think kind of all of our favorite sections here, and this is where we can, kind of agree or disagree or agree to disagree at times. With the pick six category here. So Ethan, I'll let you kick it off here. Who are you kind of going in at a value play for your first pick six player this week?
So when it came to my bullish buy, I ended up going with the safe pick with Amon Ra, and I was actually debating whether I wanted to put Cooper Cup in there, but as we talked to before the show, sometimes you just never know if it's gonna be a Cup day or a Puka day, and I didn't want to risk that, which is why I went Amon Ra, but I did end up going to Marcus Robinson at 3,600. I'm honestly pretty surprised how cheap Demarcus Robinson is. He's been very good over the past few weeks. And he's been a big part of their offense. He's played an average of 92% of the snaps in the last 4 weeks, excluding week 18, where he didn't play very much. The Rams didn't really have much to play for. But like I said, 92, averaging 92% of the snaps, averaging 7.25 targets a game, and he's had some pretty steady production over this time frame. In weeks 13 through 17, Robinson scored 15.5, 13.6, 14.7, 20.2, and 13.2. So at a price point of 3,600, if he can turn in any of those scores this weekend, you're making out there. He's going against a 30th ranked defense against opposing wide receivers in the Detroit Lions. I think Matt Stafford is going to have a very good day. And I think Demarcus Robinson has an opportunity to have a big week. I mean, like I said, he's out there and he's getting targets. So I thought when I saw him at 3,600, I kind of thought it was a no brainer. I'm like, hey, I'll avoid Cup and Puka at their cost, and I'll just go cheap at Demarcus Robinson, and hoping he can find the end zone, which he's been finding that on a regular basis over the past few weeks.
Yeah, no, I like the call. I think as a Chiefs fan, I kind of saw Demarcus Robinson kind of blossom in the league and kind of show his high points, and it's kind of nice to see him finding a role with another team, especially late in the season, where on a playoff team, right? So they kind of I think they finally found that third receiver that's working for him now, and Robinson's really coming through. I mean, he's got speed on him. I know he's part of the Legion of Zoom, they called it in Kansas City. So he's actually I don't even know if you call it deceptively fast, but I mean at 6'1" or 6'2", with that speed, I think that works McVay's offense. So good call there, and I know Detroit's secondary does give you space. So I think definitely having players in that matchup. I know we have St. Brown. But yeah, I think that Rams Lions game, I think, with that being the highest over this week, I think there's going to be some, scoring to go around. So good call there. I'm not gonna knock it at all. Um, so I guess with that being said, I'll go ahead and move on to my first pick six player. So at 5,800, I'm going quarterback, and I'm gonna end up going with Baker Mayfield, playing against Philadelphia Eagles. So Baker surprisingly had a top 10 fantasy season. He threw over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions. So interestingly enough, I mean, that gave him 17 points per game, which is actually only like 2 points less than Mahomes on a per week basis. So I think with Baker going against a struggling secondary in Philly, I think as I mentioned earlier, I really kind of hope a little bit of a back and forth play, with them playing in Tampa Bay, a little bit warmer weather. I'm really hoping for a little bit more points on the board. So I think Baker can do it. He's kind of shown I mean, he does have some spotty weeks where he won't throw any touchdowns, right? But I think he can pop off, and he's got a lot. He kind of showed a lot this year. So I think win or lose, I don't mind throwing Baker, and I think he's got a good chance of throwing over 300 yards this week, which gives you an additional 3 points in DraftKings too. So, side note, I like the over in this game. It's only at 44 as well, but I went with Baker as my pick six player this week.
No, I like that call a lot. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be able to do a lot through the air against the Philadelphia Eagles. As you mentioned, the Eagles 31st against quarterback. They're also 32nd against opposing wide receivers, which is why I definitely want to get a piece of this game. I actually put Chris Godwin into my lineup. I think he's gonna have a good day, and I think he's gonna need to have a good day against the Eagles in order for Tampa Bay to get the W. But I mean, I think Tampa Bay has a good a chance as any team this weekend to pull out a victory. They've been playing pretty good football. The Eagles haven't. And at that price point for a quarterback with Baker Mayfield being $5,800, it allows you to do a lot with the rest of your lineup. So I definitely like to call a cheaping out on a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I figured, yeah, I mean, if Mahomes gives you like 2, 3 more fantasy points this week, I'm hoping to make it up elsewhere in my lineup. So kind of my reasoning there. Ethan, hit us with your second and last pick six player this week.
Yeah, so I had a little trouble deciding who I wanted to discuss on the pod here with my second pick six player. Uh, Hopefully I don't get it wrong. um, but I think I'm going to lean on Deontay Johnson for 5,000. I know I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but I do expect Pittsburgh to be playing from behind. I don't think they're going to be able to give Najee Harris 26 carries like they did last week against Baltimore. I think Mason Rudolph is going to need to throw the ball. I know the weather last week against Baltimore, it was rainy, so it kind of forced a lot of underneath throws, which obviously benefited Deontay Johnson, even though he did get one of those few deep balls and he scored a 71 yard touchdown. Pickens had 0 targets and 0 catches, obviously, as a result. But I think Deontay Johnson is gonna get peppered with targets because I do think Pittsburgh is gonna have to do everything they can to stay with Buffalo. I like Deontay Johnson's talent. I know he was the commissioner's flag plant, one of his flag plants uh, before the season started. I liked what I saw last week. I'm hoping he can build off that game and build his rapport with Mason Rudolph. But I think Mason Rudolph is going to have to, as I said, chuck the ball a little bit. And I think for 5,000, I like the bet. I like to bet on Deontay Johnson. I think he's a really good receiver, and I think he can create a lot of separation for Rudolph in a game where they're definitely projected to lose. So he's a guy that you throwing your flex and hoping for maybe another one of those long touchdowns. But Deontay Johnson was my pick at $5,000 for my second pick six player.
I really like that pick. I think Deontay's kind of hovered around the $5,000 range ever since he returned this year from his injury. So he has been pretty safe. I mean, he's had a few goose egg weeks. I think with the George Pickens, week where he kind of just went nuclear. Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot to go around for Johnson that week, but I think anytime you can get a number one target on the team for about 5,000, it's pretty pretty good. But I think going back to your logic over just the game script, I think yeah, it is. I know you're hoping for the Steelers defense, but I don't think they can pitch a shutout against Buffalo. So I'm kind of right there with you over your take over the game flow and just needing to kind of have a little bit higher pass volume in this week's matchup. So good call there with Deontay. It's funny you're kind of hesitant on him at 5,000 being a number one target. It's definitely a lot safer than my last pick six player. I'll tell you that. So, so last week I kind of went a little off the radar with Noah Gray. I am going back to my Kansas City Chiefs here, as well. So this is kind of my one player. I do feel like I have a pretty safe lineup with the exception of this player right here. So,
Oh boy, here we go.
Here we go. So I'm going 3,100. I'm actually going McCole Hardman.
Oh, I was literally just gonna say you're going. That was the player I was gonna guess on Kansas City that you were going with. Is it because of all the drops he had last week?
No, actually, kind of the opposite there. It's kind of more, Kansas City, as we know, it's kind of pretty well known as wide receivers been pretty weak this year. I think with a lot of their starters sitting and McCole coming back from his injury, it was really nice to see him kind of just take over last week in week 18. Came down with 6 catches for 77 yards with Gabbert at QB. One thing I really liked about that is he refused to rotate out much of that game to where they kind of had a script for him or kind of share some snaps with other wide receivers, but there were many times he refused to come out a rotation read. Andy Reid noted, which I love that, and it actually sounded like Andy Reid liked that as well. So it's nice to see him try to step up and show he can be back in the mix in Kansas City and maybe dependable through these playoffs. So I do think that he can be the Chiefs spark, kind of they need to kind of take a little bit away from Kelsey. Without getting too much into detail, I mean, they've always had a lot of motion behind the line of scrimmage in recent years with like Tyreek and some of those guys. But this year's Travis Kelsey. So I don't know if Travis Kelsey going in motion a whole lot is doing, kind of what it did in recent years, but they really need a kind of a speedster like McCole to kind of run behind the line of scrimmage a little bit and kind of get involved there. But I know kind of going off on a rant a little bit, but I do think McCole he is a big play guy, so I think he can give a spark to the Chiefs and come down with like a 30-40 yard catch and maybe turn that into a touchdown. So cheap play there, but I think, like I said, I think he's exactly who they need to step up in the playoffs this week. So I want McCole Hardman only 3,100 this week.
Yeah, just like you said, I think you're gonna need McCole Harmon to get a long touchdown to probably do much of anything in this game. I know he had 11 targets last week, but obviously the big target hogs weren't playing with obviously with Kelsey and Rice. So it'll be interesting to see how McCole Harmon kind of plays in to the Kansas City offense with the full squad. But definitely not a bad bet, I would say. I don't necessarily love it because I just have no idea how McCole Hardman is going to fit in with the full complement of weapons. But McCole Hardman's always been a guy that can score any point on the field, and that's really all you need in this case with that price point. So I like the upside, hate the safety, but you're definitely you're not really going for safety if you're going with a pick like McCole Hardman, and he's so cheap. It really doesn't impact you too much if he has kind of a dud game. I mean, if he only has 5 or 6 points, he's not going to kill you. But I did think it was kind of cool to see my guy Rashee Rice being valued $500 more than Travis Kelsey. Rashee Rice was a guy I've been basically trying to get in my lineup almost every single week the second half of the season, and his price point was getting up there. So unfortunately, I couldn't get him in my lineup this week, but definitely getting some respect on DK.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I like that call out there. I know Rice has been your boy all year. I mean, I know so Miami's defense is pretty banged up. I know, one thing that does scare me with still with having Ramsey out there, they can come up with a couple creative ways to kind of shut down Rice, if it whether it is Ramsey on him or if Ramsey has to go over to Kelsey and then come up with something else for Rice. So I really think that they really need a third body to really step up, even if it's just 2 or 3 big plays. I mean that's really what I'm looking for with McCole. But I really hope that happens and they use that throughout the playoffs. But
Wait a second, you're a big play guy. Is Justin Watson? That's your guy.
I know Watson is my guy as well. It is funny because Reed did say, when asked reporters about Harmon's performance in Week 18, he was pretty, he was impressed. And he's like, yeah, we'll see how we can work him in there now too. Kind of alluding to the fact they're still going to stick to Watson in that rotation too. So, kind of funny, but I do think that they are going to work McCole into the rotation, as Reed said, and he's familiar with the offense. I mean, he has came up with pretty big plays, even in the playoffs in recent years with the Chiefs too. So I'm really kind of hoping for that comeback there. And as I mentioned, the Legion of Zoom with Demarcus Robinson, and McCole was part of that squad with Tyreek as well. So kind of my last 2 cents there on Hardman.
No, I know Hardman. Obviously, he's kind of had a roller coaster of a career. I know he was the a dynasty darling when the Chiefs drafted him in the second round. He soared up rookie drafts, but obviously the Chiefs were kind of swinging and misses the last couple of years on second round receivers with McCole and Sky Moore, but I think they may have hit a home run with my guy Rashee Rice there. But yeah, no. So I think I like to pick 6 players. The one, I guess, a small bonus, I guess, on my end. I was really debating whether to talk about 2 different players. One, obviously, I talked about was Deontay Johnson. Ended up going with him, but I also thought a guy like Brandon Cooks at 4,900. Obviously they're playing at home against the Packers, and if Jair Alexander shadows CeeDee Lamb, I think it might lend to a lot of opportunities for Cooks. So, and I like this price point under 5,000. Cooks has been kind of coming on the last few weeks. So I thought that price point was tantalizing, but I ended up going with Deontay Johnson.
I like that. I like that take as well. I mean, my head kind of went there too. With I know Jair had that little suspension game at the end of the season, but I mean, he is still a tremendous corner, and if he can slow down Lamb, at least I think Cooks is he may be cooking, right? So so good.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, yes, you're right. So he could be a tantalizing. If you're not too into having McCole Hardman in your lineup, maybe go Cooks as Ethan did. So good call there. I like the bonus player there in the section. Like I said, we'll get Kamish's picks in our Discord as well, and then also just feel free to ask us questions too on any of our socials. But hey, before we close out, I know we talked about the Super Wild Card weekend. Any hot takes that you got cooking for us?
This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot.
You know what? I think my hot take is going to be I'm going to make a couple of game picks. I think I'm going to go Bucks over Eagles, and which I'm going to go Bucks over Eagles and Rams over Lions. So a couple of dogs winning there. I know the Rams are getting a lot of steam, but I think the bigger of the hot takes is Bucks over Eagles. I think the Eagles are just reeling. The Buccaneers are playing at home. I think Baker Mayfield can take advantage of that poor secondary. I think Rachaad White has a big day, and I think the Bucks can come out on top. But that's my hot take. We'll see if the Eagles can rebound, but I don't know. They're looking pretty rough as of late. But the defending NFC champs, I think, are getting an early exit in Super Wild Card weekend.
Yeah, I like it. I like it for upsets. I mean, obviously on the betting front, that's always fun as well. So I can kind of like to see those happen. One out of those two is part of my hot take, so I like it. So it might not be so hot of a take anymore. I also went Rams, so I also like Rams money line. I think Stafford could come into Detroit and upset the Lions too. So I think they're rolling with some nice momentum in recent weeks. So nice story as we talked about there. And then I guess just look forward to something I'll cook up with McCole Hardman.
Oh boy, here we go, cooking up some lays.
Yeah, so I don't have one yet because of course the props are not out yet, but I'm definitely going to look at the longest reception over. That deep in the depth chart, sometimes those you only need like the over to be over 11 yards. So I think a guy with like as McCole Hardman, that can be an easy over there too. So if you're able to kind of string it longer and you can do like an over 20 yard, that can get pretty juicy at that point. But for now, I'm just going to say a McCole Hardman over on a longest reception, but we'll definitely wait to see when the props come out there.
Hey, I always like pairing your hot take with some of the players we talked about. So, hey, hopefully McCole Hardman has a big day as for your Kansas City Chiefs because they may need it. I mean, the Chiefs and the Eagles, obviously both defending champions of their respective conferences. They were reeling a little bit towards the end of the season, so maybe they can flip the switch.
Agree. Yeah, we'll definitely hope it there. But yeah, should be a fun weekend ahead of us. And yeah, look out at the all of our socials. As I mentioned, Kamish has a nice blog for all you Dynasty fans out there. If if you're a Josh Jacobs owner, if you want to maybe consider trading for him, definitely read up on that blog. Definitely well written there. I guess with that being said, we'll end in Sunday surefire fashion here with a good old peace.